Hi everyone, Heath Gascoigne here. In this lesson we're going to talk about process mapping. We're going to have a change to our regular format like we did in the governance framework lesson. This is going to be your masterclass in process modeling and mapping. We're going to use the HR transformation case study as the process model, and we're going to walk through a process, a level 4 process map. The goal of both of these, or process mapping, is two things. First is to get the process model. The process model is going to tell you the universe of processes that are in scope for the organization, from which you will target those processes that are in scope for your transformation. Do you know why? Sometimes, in fact, almost all of the time, it's only some of the processes in the organization and not all of the processes in the organization that are in scope for your transformation. So that's the first part. The second part is, now you've got the superset of all processes, what are the processes that are up for change? These are your in-scope processes. And in order to baseline those, we need a starting point. So we need to map those. And that's the two parts: process modeling and process mapping. What I have behind me is the HR transformation process model. This has been recreated and amended to mimic the actual model. It's not an exact copy, but good enough for this exercise so you can understand and get a good sense of what we're looking at when we talk about a process model. This is a process model for the division. If you're doing one for the organization, it would look like this. It actually could be 4 or 5 times this, depending on the number of divisions at hand. But for a division, this is about the size. So what we're looking at here is a level 4 process model. We have level 1, HR lifecycle. This is a well-known process in the organization, but also a well-known process in the HR industry. What it is really, it mimics the employee life cycle that employee has with an organization. So it's very intuitive. And this is represented by the level 2 processes, which is the next level down. These level 2 processes are from taking the level 1 process and decomposing them to sub-processes, which both mimic the stages of an employee has with an organization, separated by clear outcomes or outputs. We will walk through this quickly to give you the idea. The first sub-process is join the workforce. The outcome being they've joined the workforce being the organization's workforce. If you refer to the playbook talks about the decomposition and breaking the high level processes into their respective sub-processes and the naming conventions of level 1, 2, 3, and 4. You'll also remember with the challenges with business architecture lessons, we talked about the handover points between the business architect and the business analyst. The business architect works at the strategic organization level, whereas the business analyst works at the delivery and implementation level. So what that looks like in terms of the process model is the business architect, that is you, will model levels 1, 2, 3, and 4, but it is the business analyst who will be doing the level 4 process mapping. However, for completeness, we'll be doing in this course, in this program, everything, including the level 4 process mapping, so that you know and you can yourself do the level 4 process mapping yourself. So continuing along, what happens after you join the organization and you join the workforce? You build the workforce. Level 2 process number 2. Next, you manage the workforce. Level 2 process number 3. Then you manage the workforce. You reward the workforce and they end up leaving at some point in time. They leave the workforce. And then lastly is managing the service. The last one here, manage the service, is where the strategic and planning activities and processes take place. You can say that all this here is operational, implementing the strategy. The first 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 sub-processes are more operational, and the last one, number 6, is strategic. Now think about that in your own organization or your own client. There's really 2 parts of the model. There's strategy and there's implementation. One part sets the direction and continuous improvement. That's the strategy part. And then the other is operational, the implementation of the strategy. I've said this before in previous lessons. If you don't measure it or you don't capture it, there's a good chance, actually you can guarantee that you don't do it. So if you've not captured at least a process, even if it's a box on the process model, there's a good chance that you or your client is not doing it. What we're doing here is effectively we're creating placeholders for the detail that we'll get to later, like our building blocks. The devil is in the blueprints. And for process modeling, the devil is in the process maps. If you don't have the detail right now, that is okay. But if you don't even call it out, then this is an activity that the business does or needs to do. There's a good chance that you do not, or they do not do it. And if they don't do it, you have to ask the question when you look at the operations and the struggling, the areas that they are struggling in is in the process or the processes where the problems are happening. So the key point is you need to call these out. So there's two components to the process model. There's the operational side and then there's the strategic side. So now we're going to walk through the end-to-end HR lifecycle so you can get a feel how to put one together for your organization or your client. The way they are constructed is very logically. So first we have the level 2, join the workforce. Let's quickly walk through the level 3 processes. What do you think logically would you do if you're joining the workforce? You need to recruit. And now that you've recruited, therefore hired, then what's the next logical step? You need to onboard them. Okay, so the next one we've got is build the workforce. So you've got to train them and develop them. You've got learning and development and everything to do with learning and development. And then you've got talent and succession. So you've developed the talent, but you also want to earmark which talent and organization that is either leaving and that you need to fill it. So there's succession planning, talent and succession planning. And now you've got manage the workforce. First you've got performance, you've got to set goals and standards, and review progress. Then you've got absence, health and well-being, employee changes. This is about secondments, promotions, demotions, and then employee engagement. As an organization, you want to keep them engaged and industrial relations, the things to do with unions and legislation and legal matters, and then rewarding the workforce. You need to pay the workforce. So there's a process for that, many actually. There's compensation and payroll. And at some point the staff leave. We have exit. And then we've got managing the service, the level 2 processes, reporting, managed service, and strategy and planning. Now that was level 3. Now let's discuss level 4 processes. Now all we've done here is what you will do too is you put a name in the frame, a placeholder for the name of a level 4 process that needs to be mapped. What we have done here is process modeling. This is not process mapping. This is process modeling. We will get to the process mapping now. What I've got on my flip chart, there's an example showing the relationship between each of the level 4 processes. I'm going to pick on the manage onboarding process as an example. The onboarding level 3 process has 4 level 4 processes. You can count them. 1, 2, 3, 4. And what that looks like if you do it another way, horizontally as opposed to vertically, we have our first 1.21, 1.22, 1.23, and 1.24. You'll see the numbering is intentional. Just like the way the blueprints are numbered and the steps are numbered in the design process, it's easy traceability. It's easy to recognize where you are in the overall process. So someone will say to you, oh, we're in 1.2.1, and you know, okay, 1.2, it's a level 2 process. And that is onboarding. So we're talking about onboarding now. Onboarding is to do with joining the workforce. So it's easy for people to understand where they are in the bigger picture and the context of the overall processes. Now for onboarding is level 3 process number 1.2. Let's walk through this logically. You've just completed recruitment and now you want to onboard your new starter. The first level 4 process is 1.2.1, 1.2.2, 1.2.3, 1.2.4. You have to manage the joiner, manage onboarding, manage induction, and deliver HR surgeries. Now there's detail in these level 4 processes, which we'll get to in a second, and I'll show you how to do that quickly. So what you have done, if you have walked through with your organizational client and stepped through level 1 process, decompose them into sub-processes, the level 2 processes, and those into level 3 and then into level 4, and repeated it for all the level 2 processes, you have the process model. What you have is, you have no duplication, you have no gaps, because one process ends and another would start. Now, that ends the modeling. This is where now the mapping starts. Now, what we've just walked through is what you will do. It's easy to get out of hand and overcomplicated and over-engineered. Remember where we are in the design process. We are in step 3, analyze. We are establishing the baseline to build from. Our objective is business transformation. It is not documentation for documentation's sake or blueprints for blueprint's sake. We want to get our documentation out to the business for feedback at regular cadence as quick as we can. The longer we spend working on it, we're at risk of adding less value to it, which is at the point of diminishing returns. The longer we keep working on it, the less value we add. You've got the templates for every blueprint in the design process, so you can get it out to the business as quick as you can. You know what the inputs are required. You can make a first attempt at the first draft and get it out to the business, and then they can give you feedback. Now, that approach to put together a process model with your client and organization would be the same approach. Each division or department would have a process model, and that's the way you put it together. Let's use finance for an example. It would have a level 1 process, the full end-to-end process that spans the organization. Let's say finance lifecycle. You would decompose it into level 2 processes. What would that be? They would surely have some governance processes, some short-term and medium-term planning processes, annual processes, some cash flow and asset management processes like receiving cash, making payroll, paying tax, etc., and surely some reporting processes. Then each of those level 2 processes would have their level 3, and those would have level 4 processes, and there you have the process model. So we've done modeling now. Now let's quickly discuss process mapping, or more specifically, level 4 process mapping. Why do we want to discuss this or get to this level? Is because one reason. The devil is always in the detail. Okay, so now I'm going to show you how to do the level 4 process mapping, because what we want to do is we want to map all of those processes. Now, if you were to count, and you can count them in your own time, if you count the number of processes we've got on that board here, there's 92 sub-processes. Now that's for a division, that's not so bad. When I started with this client, just one team within this division, they thought they had 200 plus processes. Well, when we went through this exercise, the way we just walked through modeling all these processes, and now shortly we will map the level 4 process maps, the lowest level of mapping, we were able to simplify and rationalize those processes they currently had, because they were basically busy being busy, and justifiably busy because they had a document for it. But what they didn't know is there was a lot of overlap and a lot of inefficiencies in those processes. But once we finished this exercise and got everything on the frame here, every level 1, 2, 3, and 4 processes, then we're going to start doing the level 4 process mapping. That in itself was a relief to the business. It wasn't 400 processes, it was 92. Still a lot, but valid processes that added value. And this is how we'll do process mapping. Okay, so what I've got here is a SIPOC. We've talked about SIPOC before in previous lessons and in the playbook. You have supplier, who's involved in the process, input, what is required to complete the process itself, the steps involved, the output that's produced, and the customer who receives the outcome. So this is how you run the process mapping exercise or workshop with your client. Now this works well in face-to-face environment where you and everyone else is in the same room, but equally you can run it online. I have run this myself both face-to-face and online using Zoom calls with stakeholders. It's just the electronic version. The process is still the same. So how this works is I've got colored cards here representing the different areas. I have my stakeholders in the room, the staff from these divisions that are responsible for these processes who actually perform these processes. I schedule time with them, I get them in the room, I call them in blocks of time. And because time is tight for everyone to take time out to work with you on this, you need to make sure you use their time wisely and show you value their time. They will appreciate that, and they'll be more willing to come to your next meeting. If, on the other hand, that you're unprepared, don't be surprised if they don't want to attend your meetings with you. So prepare yourself. Get the list of processes that you will discuss with them and send them that list beforehand, before the meeting. Even better if you have a draft version that you can mock up yourself, or use an existing process and walk through and validate that. The best way to complete the SIPOC is to give them the sticky notes and say, okay, so who's involved? Who's the supplier? Who's involved in this process? And get them to write them down. So I've got level 4 process, manage induction 1.2.2. So I'll go to the HR advisor that's in the room with me and the assistant and the apprentice. And I'll say, who's involved? And they'll write on the cards and I'll stick it here. We've got candidate, HR advisor, line manager, and we've also got non-human actors. We've got human actors and we've got non-human actors. Human actors are the people and the non-human actors are the systems and data. In terms of systems, we've got SharePoint. I'll say, okay, so what do they need? These are the inputs. We've got 2 spreadsheets. One is called the recruitment spreadsheet and the other is called the induction spreadsheet. So great. So walk me through the process. And they'll say, well, now tell me the story. How does the process work? So I think what you just said is that you update the induction spreadsheet, you email the line manager when the induction booking is confirmed, and you also need to book the building tour, which you also booked. And then you email the line manager the booking tour confirmation, that they are booked in. And there's a question of whether the employee attended or not. So what we've got here is enough information to start the mapping, to put these actors and activities on the process map. We don't have all the detail, like exactly where the spreadsheet is stored and what drive or folder in the share drive. That is not that level. We'll get to it, but it's not for now. We will get that information in the next level down in the level 5 process table. Like our blueprints, we have a model and a diagram and a supporting table. The devil is in the detail, and that detail is in the table. So now we have enough information to start the process mapping. I'm going to get my spreadsheet here, my piece of paper. So what I have here is a swim lane process template. I've drawn on a flip chart paper here, swim lane. This is a swim lane process map, or a template for a swim lane process map, and it's got 5 lanes. We've got 3 reserves for human actors, then we've got 1 for technology and 1 for data. So the way it works is what we've got on top, we've got the humans, because it's often the most interest to the people where they are in the process, so we put them at the top. We don't put them at the bottom. We put the systems at the bottom that support the processes, because this is how it is in reality. Technology and data support the processes, just like technology architecture and data architecture support business architecture. So all I'm going to do now is transfer these sticky notes onto their positions on the map. So we have candidate, HR, advisor, line manager, and SharePoint. In terms of data, we've got the 2 inputs, the 2 spreadsheets. Now I'll talk through the process with the staff member here and say, walk me through the process. And while they're talking, I'll be taking the sticky notes and I'll be putting on the map. It will take a bit of moving around. What will happen is you'll find that some are missing, like when you say, what triggers this process to start? And if they say, oh, the end of the previous process. Oh, you mean the manage onboarding process is finished. When the new starter has got their ID card and login details and they can enter the building, you need to book them into induction. So that is a process 1.2.1, manage onboarding. Yes. Okay. What you need to do is you need to add a trigger. This is the start of the process, which is this pentagon shape. It's in the template and the lessons back in the portal to reference the process that triggers the start of this process. So once you have that in place and finally agreed with everyone that everything is in place, I get out my marker, number the steps and join them together. Now what I do next is I take a photo of this process and of all the processes. I type it up after the meeting and call and I send it out for review. Now you'll see this is simple modeling language, also called UML, Unified Modeling Language. This is not BPMN or Business Process Modeling Notation language. Remember our KISS principle. Keep it simple, Simon. We want to keep it simple. There's a simple reason. The simplest reason is for simplicity. The goal is to get the business to agree on what happens today so that you can establish a baseline that the business can agree on. They can agree on it because they can understand it. It is written and documented in a way they can understand. And the best part, it was their words and their language. Okay, so once you've got this level 4 process mapped, the next level is the level 5. Now level 5, if you recall from the playbook, there are 5 levels to process mapping. But level 5 is not technically a map. It's a table describing the steps and actions. You have a template as per in the lessons and the resources. You have all the templates there, including the level 4 process map and the level 5 action table, as well as the level 5 background table. Now this step action table is a table with a number, the number of the step in the process, and who has the action, whether the action is carried out by a person or a system. What you're doing here is recording the detail from the level 4 process map in the table. So this table is actually what is called in process mapping a level 5 process. It's not actually or technically a process map, it's a process table. So what we're doing here is recording the detail, including any metrics or SLAs. Remember, I talked about the building blocks being mostly made up of 2 blueprints. One is a visual diagram or model, and the second is a table. What level 5 process table provides is a level of detail that wasn't in that model. For some people, they need to see the model or diagram, So visually they can understand the context, but they need to see the table to see the detail. And this is what this table does. So I would write out the level 4 process map, write out the steps and actions in the steps and actions table, and complete the third slide, a background slide, that is also included in the templates. It's background information about the process, who's involved, any assumptions, policies, where the process fits in the overall process model, which level 1 or level 2 process is a part of, and any sub-processes, as well as inputs and triggers. Now, I would send that pack electronically to the process owners or to the staff you consulted with for their input and get them to review it and provide comments. And then we'll go through 1 or 2 rounds of review and updates. If you get a lot of feedback and changes, book a walkthrough in a room or on a call. I would put it on a screen and walk through it and make changes in real time on the screen, making changes to that document itself. And that there will become the first version of the whole process model, including the level 4 and the level 5 process maps and tables. You would now have an agreed baseline. You have now baselined the process model and maps for the current operating model, including any metrics that were captured. Okay, this here, what we have on the whiteboard is the process model. Now, once you've completed that, that is how that you would do the process modeling and the process mapping for all of the processes. And you see how quickly we got through that level. That level 4 process mapping is pretty quick. So if you went into any more detail, you would spend a lot of time on this. And that's when it gets to the point of diminishing returns. The longer you work on it, the less value you get out of it. Remember, our goal is not to finesse the current operating model. Our goal is to get an agreed baseline, not a superficial baseline where people speak in general terms of what they think goes on in the business, but an agreed baseline where they actually see what goes on in the business, and that is in the process level. This is the step that scares the business and other stakeholders when you say we need to understand the current state of the organization today. This is it. If you do it like this, it's a relatively quick process, and best part, it was the business who you are there to help transform that provided the input. It's their words, and you got to this point and played it back to them fast, that they were like, okay, that was painless. I think we can actually do this. What's next? So that's process modeling and mapping. Now, in terms of risks, don't get caught up in the modeling notation and the symbol semantics. Remember KISS. If you have to send the business stakeholders off on a day course to learn the modeling language that you want to use to explain the process mapping to them, you lost them before you started. What you want to do is follow this approach, keep it simple, get the business involved, get them doing the work. What happens from that is not only they feel like they're involved, they're actually driving it because it's both their work and their words. This modeling and mapping here will form the baseline and comparison between the current operating model and the future operating model, and the gap analysis and the impact analysis. So not only is it high reuse, it is very important step that I highly recommend. Despite the pressures that you get to crack on, don't. It's not difficult, it's not complicated, it's pretty simple when you follow this approach. So use this approach, this works, it works every time. I've been using it now for over 10 years myself, and it works like clockwork, and I get rave reviews from it. So that wraps up this lesson for process mapping. So now your actions. You know the deal, go to the lesson, get the blueprints and complete this activity for your current client, past client, or favorite company and submit that. Even if you're not currently in a project now, go through the process. Pick a favorite or previous client and do the exercise. When you do it and get used to it and you go through the motions, you get better at it. And then when you're with your client, you hit the ground running and you deliver faster. So that's it for this lesson. Now for the next lesson, we're going to go through capability mapping, where we're going to map those processes we've got here onto the organization's capability model. We're going to show which one of these processes support what business capabilities. Business capabilities we discussed earlier in the Welcome Week. See you there. Thanks for watching.